So, Paul, you wanted to touch a little bit further on the the robots that are coming to take your job and then fire you, I believe.
The one
Do you have any imminent concerns?
not particularly. I feel relatively safe from the robots. I'm sure there's other things that are bigger obstacles in my way, losing my gig. But the one thing I wanted to make a point with this is the headline always obviously needs to be flashy, coming from our jobs, fire us. But really what I would view this as is technology should be a piece of the puzzle when you're looking at evaluating a decision to make. It's the same thing when you hear it in analytics in sports, where some people say stat heads or these nerds are too focused on these numbers. It doesn't have to be the end-all be-all that you just use this data point to make all these critical decisions, but it's just something that should be a part of it. If you think a driver is slacking off and they haven't been, meeting up to expectations, this can act to verify that assumption that you have.
Yeah, I do wonder. Actually, let's go through it right now. So I'm gonna take a look at the job categories that have the most number of. So we get this monthly report, the JOLTS report, and in that report includes the total job openings by industry. And I kind of want to go through them here and point out where we think the highest probability of automation could come in over the coming years, because these are areas that clearly have a backlog in terms of what they're trying to fill in the workforce. So one of the biggest ones would be trade, transportation, and utilities. That would include retail. It includes warehousing and transportation. I don't see a whole lot of imminent disruption coming to transportation. I think that the possibility of a self-driving truck, whether we would like to believe it or not, is probably a good decade away before it's widely adopted.
I agree.
In retail, you're going to have stocking associates forever, but it does seem as though, hey, if you go to a grocery store, you can do self-checkout. What's preventing that at other places, I think would be a fair question. Why... Other than theft, why do I need to do, a cashier checkout at somewhere like TJ Maxx or Macy's?
Right.
I don't see a real compelling reason why, if the wages didn't get too high, if the wages got too high, that they wouldn't just replace that individual. Again, shoplifting might be the concern there, but I mean, with all the self-checkout lanes that I go to at the grocery store, there's somebody sitting there monitoring the 6 lanes, and so I don't suspect that it would be that big of an issue.
Yeah, could you cut from 12 cashiers to just 6 security associates monitoring 12 lanes, something like that. Same thing would apply. I've always thought about it for fast food companies. McDonald's and others have piloted kiosks where you basically just put your order in there, then only having employees in the back room facilitating the orders, and then just having them shuffle out through some sort of, tray delivery system. It's really wouldn't be that hard to do in those.
Fast food is definitely one that I see it happening.
Yeah.
In fact, I was telling Tucker, I stopped at a chain that we don't really have it here, Steak and Shake out in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody behind the counter. Just a giant pad. Pick what you want, customize it how you want.
Right.
And to Chuck's point yesterday, when you do a mobile order on your phone, that's automation.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's the same thing. If I'm doing a Starbucks mobile order, that is reducing the headcount needed at the Starbucks. So I think there's going to be a bigger push from that among certain restaurants, right? You're not going to go to a fine dining restaurant and have a pad where you're ordering your food, but I would go so far to say as a 99 restaurant, or actually, this is a good example. I was at, what's the Yard House?
Mm-hmm.
At Yard House, you have a waiter. You also have an iPad right on your table where you can order everything if you choose to. They are not pushing that, but clearly the goal is, hey, if enough people are just ordering the food on their iPad, then we can have one waiter covering 10 tables, whereas previously they could only cover 6. So that in the dining area, I see that could be a big push,
Fast
and I
casual.
think people are more comfortable with when I'm there. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about the fact that I bring my 3 kids to Yard House pretty frequently, but
it's a family restaurant.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to burden a waiter with the craziness of my order when I'm rushing to get the kids' orders in and then hoping that they come back so that I can get my food in. No, just I'll do it on an iPad. I'm comfortable with that. Education and health services. God, I hope we don't automate that a whole lot more. The only area in healthcare that you have seen some in the way of automation is like digital appointments for doctor's visits. And that, I'm on board with that.
Mm-hmm. So
The problem is licensure. The problem is, a nurse or doctor in Connecticut has a very tough time visiting with a patient in Massachusetts, and that's always been the case. But, automating things so that if you live in a very rural area of the country and you're 100 miles away from your nearest healthcare provider, you can still get reasonable healthcare. I don't know how much that reduces the need for doctors and nurses, but to some degree it might.
I wonder if pharmacists, I was just thinking in my head if that's something just barcode based that you could just have them. Well, you also need security verification, though, just to make sure the prescriptions would be right.
The one big one, when I think about hotels, I do not know today why I need to go talk to somebody when I check in. I see that as a completely unnecessary process. Does nothing for me. I don't really know what it does for the hotel. I would be perfectly comfortable, and I know there are some newer hotels that do this entirely. Walk me up to a screen, scan my license, scan my credit card, sign a couple of waivers, give me my key cards, and tell me where to go.
You still need the employees up there in that one-off situation where you have an additional request or there's something
that's
you
what the
wanna go
concierge
over.
desk is for.
Right. The check-in, that makes sense because on the checkout, you're always in that awkward spot where you really don't need to check out in many places because your access just gets turned off. So same thing could apply on the check-in side of things.
The last one, government. Your job's safe. The government jobs will start to be automated 30 years after all the other ones have because of their slow adoption to technology.
Gosh, yeah.
So, don't worry about that one. I think you're good.